Welcome to another edition of Lessons Learned Along the Way, where I get to pick the brain of a special guest to unearth practical and street-tested lessons they've learned along the way, along their business journey. That may help you and, quite frankly, help all of us shorten our time frame to success. I am Theriault, president of Allied Executives. Allied Executives is a Minneapolis-based community of business owners that comes together through peer groups, educational workshops, and high-class networking events where we're really there to learn the skills of running and owning a business so we can all drive the value of our business long-term and have our companies be long-term sustainable. Today I'm thrilled and grateful to have Todd Eberhardt of Dynasty Leadership with us. Todd, you have a great set of background experiences that have led you to this point where you have your practice and what you do. Mm-hmm. I don't want to steal your thunder. I'd love to kind of have you share with us a little bit. What is some of the work you're doing within the practice today? But more importantly, what led you to this point?
So right now, my world's really simple right now. I do two things. I coach high-performing CEOs that are in their first or last chapter of leadership. So they're getting ready for a transition, right? Sell or pass on to family. And guys or gals in their first chapter. They're taking over maybe for a founder. So I'll coach them. And then the other thing I do is help with strategic planning for companies that want to grow and innovate. Mm. If I had to back into it, the story that precedes that, I'm a serial entrepreneur. This is my sixth company. The other five were either technical or management leadership based. And look, I've sold to private equity, I've sold to my management teams, got a lot of lessons along the way. And that's what we're here to talk about today, isn't it?
What are some of the things that if you're a new CEO, obviously even one that's maybe winding down in their career and looking towards the next thing, or has been in the role, or even a business owner, doesn't have to be a CEO, but you've been in the job for a long time and you're looking to get better and sharpen the saw, and you maybe haven't quite gotten to where you want to get to, and there may be a couple things holding you back. So what do you see that could help anybody that's in that situation?
So if I take a look at it from the standpoint of a great leader, right? Somebody who's charismatic, that people love following and things. Especially when you've been an entrepreneur for a while, one of the things that I certainly struggled with early in my businesses is delegation, right? You get really good at something, maybe it's a passion of yours, but truth be told, so if you take a look at like a Mark Zuckerberg, right? If he was still doing all the coding for Facebook, it might not be out of the Harvard dorms yet, right? So that delegation, that idea of being able to pass on some other things so you can take on bigger responsibilities. Early on, back when I was running ComWorks, along with Al Lampe and Jeffrey Jacob, great leaders both, we had this thing going and the business was growing, and I loved sales. That was my side of it, CEO, lead out in sales. Well, I waited way too long to be able to delegate and hand off those sales. I waited way too long, as we still continue to grow and we did get sales, to hire talented managers that could take the time and attention to coach these people along. And I waited way too long to get executive leadership over the sales team.
What was the trigger for you in those situations that was kind of the aha, if you will, that led you to understand that, wait, why am I doing this? Or I have in fact held on too long and it's time to do something different. Was there a seminal moment, or?
In each of those times, it's usually a painful inflection, right? So maybe you get that call from a client that you think has been wonderful and you really get along and they do great business with you, but now they're unhappy because they're not getting the attention. Or maybe we had that great salesperson that now they may not have left, but maybe you hear they're talking to some other people. And so you get those things. It may be less of a rational thing, but it's certainly an emotional dig, right?
Yes.
And it's a wake-up call, right? So some people take action on it, and other people are like, oh, I'm going to put that away. I'm just going to keep
digging harder. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Can you share just a little bit about, once you came to that realization, how'd you move it forward?
Yeah, so in the earlier days, moving forward, a lot of times we as entrepreneurs, we think of ourselves sometimes as the rugged individualist. I gotta be the smartest guy, I gotta get this done, I gotta do all this. And it's debilitating. It quite honestly, it freezes us in our tracks. So luckily enough, I've had great mentors along the way. I've had other fantastic business people. I've spent money on coaches and consultants and things that also had good skill set, good processes and things like that. And it's those processes, when they fit with your personality, those are the things that help you move through that. So, okay, what does somebody that's at least 80% as good as what I could do, what do they look like? And what am I going to measure them by? And so we set those processes into motion. We got talented people. You know what's funny? We grew by quantum leaps as soon as we set that free.
Amazing how that works.
Yeah, it was crazy.
So one of the examples used was around hiring an individual. Assume another lesson in there around hiring, and a great lead-in maybe to the next one. But talk a little bit more about learning that lesson. How did you arrive at the key is hiring someone maybe that's better than you at what you do, or that can take you to a place you haven't been?
Yeah, so hiring is a huge thing, and for any company that wants to scale, look, you as leaders, you definitely know it takes talent. And I've got the pleasure of being able to work with a ton of talented companies, and I get to see what that looks like. If I draw back on my own experiences and then I take a look at what other companies, when you stall out, one of the things that becomes an issue, if you take about lessons learned, is when I tried to hire people that looked exactly like me, that did that same skill set and did things the same way. And it's a mistake because there's so many other talents that we overlook. There's so many complementary fits if you're trying to fill gaps, all those different things. So what became a better process was being able to take, okay, what is it we need to have done? And more importantly, I'd like to think about it, am I looking for somebody that's going to be a leader, that's going to be able to take things into the future and grow, or am I looking for a good manager, a good follower? In any team, you need a little bit of both, because you can't always be the guys looking for the three-point shot. Somebody has got to be able to make a good pass, dig into the corners and do those. So getting those type of things are together, but there's some great process for complementary fit to say, okay, hey, when we were a $5 million company, this skill set was really important. But now we're 25, we're 50, we're 150 million, different talents.
So those are two great lessons. Talk to me about a third one you learned. I think this is a very interesting one.
So one of the things, and I'll take that from the standpoint of as the business grows, targeting best clients. We always think we know what that looks like, and again, huge blind spot as an entrepreneur, because we probably got pretty good intuitively at figuring out what things look like. But when you grow, you have a whole team of people out there looking, and I was amazed early on and at different companies how if we didn't have it down, if we didn't have a very specific skill set of what that looked like, I would interpret it one way, you might look at it a different way, and we would pretty much get off kilter. The other thing that we didn't do is often enough we didn't refresh. So what I mean by that specifically is the $5 million company, there's a certain kind of client that makes you happy, that's the love of your life, that produces great profits, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But at 50 million, it's evolved. It's a different set. Sometimes they grow with you, but quite often your capabilities increase, the personnel increases, your scope increases, all those things, and you need to take that into account, and how do you map that out? The other thing that became really important, I think of it in terms of like base hits, right? Demographics is a single, right? You're hitting singles. Everybody can pretty much say it's this size business, we work with these industries in this geography, right? That's just base hits. You want to hit doubles, you got to understand the timing triggers.
Say more about that. What does that mean?
So a timing trigger is what is different in your world today than it was yesterday as a prospect, right?
Okay.
So what is your client, your future client, what's different in their world today than yesterday that has them picking up the phone and saying, I got to call Kurt. Today's the day I'm going to call Kurt. I've had this contract on my desk for 3 months, but today's the day I'm taking action. what's going on in their world. And so once we start to understand the timing that our clients are going through, we make huge leaps.
And how do you help clients figure that out? And I guess a secondary question I have is, how conscious do you think companies or sales teams, marketing departments on those triggers?
So I'll get you the
maybe
third base
reverse
one.
there, right?
You're on track with it. The third piece is psychographics. And it's a fancy way of saying, what are the stories we tell ourselves about what we believe and who we are, right?
Right, yes.
So back to your point, how do we get to those pieces? It's a process of figuring out, okay, what has worked in your recent past? How do we get to those things? And what are those people that are doing the best work for us now? How do we pull those pieces out? You had asked about, are people conscious of that? So if I ran the bases, I would say 80% of the companies are pretty good at the demographics.
Right, that'd be my assumption, yeah.
Maybe 50% understand the timing, and that's like, oh, well, they're on a calendar year. Every year in January, they renew these policies.
Sure, right.
But a lot of times they're a little more emotional triggers than that. I missed my kid's third Little League game. I'm not letting that happen again. I've got to get better at this. I need a coach, right? Those type of things.
Absolutely.
It's a trigger. Yeah. And then the psychographics, it never comes up, to be honest with you. It just doesn't come up. But you've all had conversations with clients where you sit down and you're having this conversation and you just click, right? You just enjoy it from the moment you start talking and listening. And then there's other times, maybe the exact same demographics and timing, the businesses look identical, but just like your 8th grade science class, you can't get those magnets to touch. It just doesn't work. That's psychographics.
Yeah.
So you start pulling all those things together and you get just laser focused on what great clients are. The profits increase, the happiness of your employees increase, the business grows. It's transformational.
Love that. We sat and prepped for this a while back. You mentioned another lesson around having big goals or pushing yourself to bigger goals, in that a lot of companies don't allow themselves to dream big in their strategic planning or other sorts of planning exercises. How did you learn that lesson, and what would you say about just that whole concept of pushing yourself to bigger goals?
Yeah, again, this comes back to being around some other great coaches and sometimes just being quiet and listening.
Yeah.
I found the best companies, the best entrepreneurs, and the best people that are out there, they dream big. They have bigger aspirations because, man, I've sat through enough board meetings where each department comes in and they just give the report, and now we're gonna beat last year by 5%, or the board gives them a goal. You got to grow.
Thinking.
Yeah. It's these small stuff. That's not inspiring.
Right.
It's just not. And so how do you get to the hearts and minds of all the people that are working and killing themselves every day to say, yeah, I want to be a part of that? So you got to dream big. And for me, the exercise is called Catapult, right? And there's all kinds of strategic planning. But the idea behind Catapult, when you toss something with a lot of weight, with great force, it creates amazing results. So you actually have to take yourself past the point of comfort, right? How big could we get? What could we be? And the really cool things, and certainly for my great clients, they have come up with some of the most amazing strategic byproducts of new ways to do business, new clients that they have never tapped into before. And they even get into some things that businesses they hadn't even considered. So I have a client that their whole world is they sell direct to customers across the country.
Okay.
But they use big name companies that they represent, right? Well, they had their own constraints and things that they had to deal with. One of the things that they came up with themselves was creating their own private label. It's not going to cannibalize from the big names, but it fills these gaps that they weren't able to get before. Catapult brought that out.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't take credit for that. Catapult set the stage for them to bring it out for
them
themselves.
to think like that.
Absolutely.
I love that. Are there one or two other lessons, Todd, along the way that you've learned that you're willing to share and that have made an impact, and just not only the work you're doing today, but just as you were going through your progressions early on in your career, were just aha moments for you that's like, hey, I got to remember that the next time around, or that made a big difference for you?
We were even talking about this before you clicked record on the camera. Through thousands of conversations, and a lot of them great conversations, I've actually created kind of my own personal system on who I'm willing to take advice from. So we'll find out if that becomes something. But I've got it down to three simple things. And for the people that because we hear from people, oh, Kurt, you should definitely do this for allied executives, right?
Right, all the time.
They've never sat in your shoes, right?
Right.
I get the same thing from people. So here's what I get it down to. It's three really simple things. First is, are they in a position that I would like to be in the next 2 to 3 years? Have they reached a spot that, man, I would like to be in their position? The second thing is, do I respect what they've done professionally? Like, we may not be friends and go golfing and go to dinner together, but do I at least respect the work they've done? Because respect is a big deal.
Huge.
And the third thing, and this is most important, is, are they okay with sharing where they've fallen short, their own lessons, their own mistakes? I sat and had breakfast with John Morrison, who it's now Midwest One, but it used to be Central Bank, and he did a ton of acquisitions, through the last decade. Hugely successful businessman. We just got to sit down for the first time for breakfast. He hadn't even gotten into his eggs yet, and he started telling me, he said, with this last acquisition, I probably should have gone down there myself, or I should have done this, and I should have done that. And we're just talking casually. He had no reason to share all that with me, but he's just so open and honest about everything. Now, the flip side of that, here's a different way to think about it.
Sure.
Everybody, we all have a friend that they said, Kurt, man, you got to go to Vegas with me, right?
That friend.
Every win, every time. It's they're unstoppable, right?
Right.
And so it's like this walking highlight reel, and you never know what's real or not. And so that last thing about being honest about the mistakes is huge, because those are the people that you can really trust that, yeah, I've experienced this, the good and the bad.
Well, I think, we'll see that in our peer groups too, where it's, the comment I use is, I'm going to learn a lot more, or you're going to learn a lot more from each other's scars than we are from the wins. And I think that, you're a coach in hockey and have played hockey in different sports. I mean, you'll learn way more from the losses about how to improve and where to improve and where to sharpen the saw than you ever do from a victory. And I think victories, a lot of times, if we don't understand what caused them, or, just wins in business, we tend not to reflect on it, and we tend not to repeat those things. So I think that's an awesome lesson. You said it's really hard to be the critic and the creator. What do you mean by that?
So often, especially when we grow up in the business with limited means, you're kind of used to being the person out in front, right? We're also used to being that person with the big ideas and things like that. Here's the problem that we get into, and whether it's the value of something like an allied executives, where you have a neutral party to make sure that things are going on. It's best if you have somebody like yourself, like the moderator, or an outside coach that doesn't have a dog in the fight, because inevitably, especially as a leader, we have our own creative ideas. We want to be a part of that conversation. But it's really hard to step back and make sure all voices are heard, to be able to flesh out some other things, because intuitively we believe our own ideas are best. It is extremely hard. And what I found is the highest performing business, the ones that grow, the ones that are profitable, and guaranteed, every publicly traded company, they have a separation of that. You have the creative group, you have the group that's generating the ideas, that's generating the horsepower, and you have that person that's the neutral third party that can objectively be able to manage the process.
How, if people want to learn a little bit more about the work you do, Todd, in your practice, or reach out to you and find out more, even engage you, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you? Give us an easy way to do that.
Yeah. So you can always go to the website at dynastylc.com. So Dynasty Leadership Consulting. So that's the LC part of it. Or Todd at dynastylc.com. Those are great ways to get a hold of me. And yeah,
I love it.
For entrepreneurial owners that are looking to grow and grow through innovation, yeah, happy to have that conversation.
Wonderful, wonderful. So I want to thank you for, number one, your time, your insights, your energy today with us. I appreciate it. I think you've helped us all think through some of the things that we got to be doing a little bit better, faster and smarter, to drive our businesses where we want to go and to drive ourselves where we want to go. So on behalf of myself, Kurt Theriault, and Allied Executives, and Todd Eberhardt with Dynasty Leadership Consulting, thank you for your time, and keep crushing it out there.